The city glimmered under a blanket of stars, the neon lights from downtown casting a kaleidoscope of colors against the night sky. Inside a lavish penthouse overlooking the skyline, Ryan Mitchell stood at the center of his own celebration, surrounded by laughter and the clinking of champagne flutes. The atmosphere was electrifying, filled with the promise of success. Yet despite the opulence that enveloped him, he felt an unsettling sense of disconnection. Ryan was the young millionaire whose tech startup had just launched a groundbreaking app, garnering attention from investors and the media alike. But as he scanned the room, the faces of his friends and business associates blurred into a portrait of superficiality. The laughter felt hollow, the compliments insincere. He raised his glass, forcing a smile as someone nearby toasted to his brilliant mind. "Cheers to Ryan, the next tech titan," someone shouted, and the crowd erupted into applause. Ryan clinked glasses with a few acquaintances, nodding politely, but inside, a wave of emptiness washed over him. He excused himself from the group, stepping onto the balcony to escape the noise. The cool night air brushed against his skin, invigorating him. He leaned on the railing, gazing down at the bustling streets below, where life unfolded in a stark contrast to his own. He often thought about how far he had come, from a scrappy kid tinkering with computers in his mother's basement to a respected figure in the tech world. Yet with each success, he found himself increasingly isolated, surrounded by people who valued his wealth more than his humanity. As he stood there lost in thought, the sounds of the party faded, replaced by the distant echoes of sirens, street vendors, and the laughter of children. Suddenly, a shiver ran down his spine, not from the cold, but from an unsettling feeling that something was amiss. He instinctively pulled out his phone, scrolling through social media, but the images of luxury cars and designer clothes only deepened his sense of disconnection. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit alley a few blocks away, Sarah Jennings knelt beside a dumpster, her heart heavy with despair. She rummaged through the remnants of discarded meals, her hands trembling as she searched for something, anything that could feed her daughter, Lily. The biting cold seeped through her thin jacket, but her primary concern was keeping Lily warm and fed. "Mommy, I'm hungry," Lily's small voice piped up from where she sat on the pavement, her big brown eyes glistening with tears. Sarah turned to see her daughter bundled in layers of mismatched clothing, shivering despite her best efforts to stay warm. "Just a moment, sweetheart," Sarah replied softly, forcing a smile that felt strained. She couldn't let Lily see the fear etched on her face. "I'm sure there's something good in here." As she dug deeper into the trash, the smell overwhelmed her, but she pushed through the nausea. She found a half-eaten sandwich wrapped in plastic and quickly checked for mold. It was stale, but it would have to do. "Here, Lily," she said, pulling it out triumphantly. "Look what I found." Lily's face lit up, and Sarah's heart swelled with a bittersweet mix of relief and guilt. They had been through so much since life had turned upside down. Sarah had lost her job, and with it, their home. The days turned into nights filled with anxiety and fear, but she was determined to keep her daughter safe. As they shared the meager meal, Sarah's thoughts wandered to their future. How long would they have to live like this? She glanced at Lily, who was smiling as she chewed on the sandwich, and her heart ached. She wanted to give her daughter a life filled with laughter, not this constant struggle. Just as they finished eating, the sound of footsteps echoed in the alley. Sarah's instincts kicked in, and she instinctively pulled Lily closer. She could see a figure approaching, illuminated by the dim glow of a streetlight. It was a man in a tailored suit, his hair neatly styled and an air of confidence radiating from him. Ryan had stepped out of his penthouse, needing a break from the suffocating glamour of his party. He had no particular destination in mind, just a desire to breathe. As he wandered the streets, he felt a strange pull, an urge to see the world beyond his affluent bubble. That was when he spotted them, two figures huddled in the shadows of the alley. His heart sank as he approached, the sight of a mother and child in such despair striking a chord deep within him. He had seen poverty before in the city, but it had always felt distant, like a problem assigned to someone else. Now, it was right in front of him, raw and real. "Excuse me," he called out gently, not wanting to startle them. Sarah looked up, her eyes narrowing in suspicion. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice defensive. Ryan held up his hands, palms outwards. "I'm not here to cause trouble, I just—" He hesitated, searching for the right words. "I saw you two from the street. Are you okay?" Do we look okay? Sarah snapped, her protectiveness flaring. Ryan took a step back, surprised by her intensity. I didn't mean to offend, I just wanted to help. It's freezing out here. Help? What do you know about help? She shot back, her voice trembling. The defensiveness was a shield, forged through months of hardship and disappointment. I know what it's like to feel alone, Ryan replied, his voice steady. And I know that sometimes we all need a hand. Lily, sensing the tension, tugged at Sarah's sleeve. Mommy, he sounds nice, she whispered, her innocence cutting through the heaviness of the moment. Ryan knelt down, meeting Lily's gaze. What's your name, little one? Lily, she said shyly, her eyes wide with curiosity. Lily, Ryan repeated, a smile breaking through the seriousness of the situation. That's a beautiful name. Listen, I know this might sound strange, but if you and your mom need a place to stay, I have a garage. It's not much, but it's warm and safe. Sarah's heart raced with disbelief. A garage? You think we're going to sleep in some stranger's garage? It's not just any garage, Ryan insisted, rising to his feet. It's clean, and I can bring you blankets and food. Please, just think about it. I can't stand the thought of you both out here in the cold. Why would you do that? Sarah asked, suspicion lacing her tone. What's in it for you? Ryan paused, the question striking a nerve. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe I just want to do something good for someone else. We're all human, right? We all deserve a little kindness. The silence stretched between them, Sarah's mind racing as she considered his offer. Part of her wanted to reject it outright, to turn away from the unfamiliar and cling to her independence. But the other part, the one that had fought so hard to keep her and Lily alive, recognized the desperation of their situation. Mommy, Lily said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Can we go with him? Ryan watched as Sarah wrestled with the decision, the flicker of hope in her daughter's eyes piercing through her defenses. Finally, she let out a long sigh, her shoulders slumping in resignation. Fine, she said, her voice low. We'll go with you. But don't think for a second that we're depending on you. This is just temporary. Ryan nodded, relief flooding through him. That's all I ask. Let's get you both out of here. As they walked together through the chilly night, a strange sense of camaraderie began to weave between them. They were two souls, each burdened by their own struggles, unknowingly embarking on a journey that would force them to confront their pasts and reshape their futures. Little did they know, their lives were about to become more intertwined than either could have ever imagined. Ryan Mitchell leaned back in the plush leather chair of his sleek office, the city skyline sprawling out before him like a glittering sea of opportunity. His latest tech launch had been a monumental success, and yet as he stared out at the lights twinkling against the night sky, he felt an inexplicable weight in his chest. The laughter and chatter from the party he had just left echoed in his mind, a cacophony of hollow congratulations and empty pleasantries. He had been the center of attention, but the thrill of the moment faded quickly, leaving behind an unsettling sense of disconnect. Maybe I need to reevaluate what I want, he muttered to himself, rubbing his temples as if that might ease the tension coiling in his mind. The opulence of his surroundings, his sprawling penthouse, the luxurious furniture, the latest tech gadgets, felt increasingly alien. He had built his life around success, but in that moment, it all felt like a gilded cage. His thoughts drifted to Sarah Jennings and her daughter Lily. The image of them huddled together in the cold, their breath visible in the frigid air, haunted him. He had acted on impulse, offering them a place to stay in his garage, and now, as he sat alone in his office, the gravity of that decision weighed heavily on him. What have I done? He whispered, a mixture of concern and guilt twisting in his gut. He had seen the desperation in Sarah's eyes, the fierce love she held for her daughter, and it had stirred something deep within him. But now, as he contemplated what it meant to open his home, or rather, his garage, to them, doubts crept in. Would this be a charitable act or simply a misguided attempt to ease his own conscience? Meanwhile, in the dim light of the garage, Sarah was unpacking what little they had. The garage was a cluttered space filled with Ryan's old belongings, dusty boxes, half-finished projects, and a rusty bicycle that hadn't seen the light of day in years. It was hardly a home, but as she looked around, she felt a flicker of hope. For the first time in weeks, they were safe from the biting cold and the uncertainty of life on the streets. "Mommy, look at this," Lily exclaimed, her voice a bright note in the otherwise somber space. She held up a worn teddy bear. a relic of another life. Sarah smiled, her heart swelling with affection as she knelt beside her daughter. "That was Daddy's bear, wasn't it?" Sarah said softly, brushing the dust from its fur. "Yeah, can we keep it?" Lily's eyes sparkled with innocence. "Of course, sweetheart, it's ours now," Sarah replied, her voice firm but gentle. She watched as Lily hugged the bear tightly, a small smile breaking through the shadows of their difficult circumstances. As days passed, the initial awkwardness of their living arrangement began to fade. Ryan would come down to the garage occasionally, his presence a mix of curiosity and trepidation. He never quite knew how to engage with them, but he found himself drawn to the warmth they brought to the otherwise cold space. "Hey, how's it going down here?" he asked one afternoon, stepping into the garage with a hesitant smile. Sarah looked up from the small makeshift table where she was sorting through their belongings. "We're making do," she replied, her tone cautious but friendly. "Lily has claimed the teddy bear as her new best friend," Ryan chuckled, glancing over at Lily, who was pretending to have a tea party with her stuffed animals. "I see that. She seems to be handling the transition well." "She's a trooper," Sarah said, a hint of pride in her voice. "Kids are resilient. They adapt." "Yeah, I guess we could all learn a thing or two from them," Ryan replied, his gaze drifting toward the boxes stacked against the wall. "I can't imagine what it must be like, living like this." "It's not easy," Sarah admitted, her voice steady. "But we're making it work. I've had to learn to appreciate the little things." "Like what?" Ryan asked, genuinely curious. "Like the warmth of a garage compared to the cold of the streets," she said, her eyes locking onto his. "Or the fact that we have a roof over our heads, even if it's not the ideal situation. And Lily, she finds joy in the simplest things like a teddy bear or a box of crayons." Ryan nodded slowly, absorbing her words. "You're strong," he said finally, almost as an afterthought. "I admire that." "Strength is all we have sometimes," Sarah replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "But it's not just me, it's Lily too. She's been through more than any child should." "Is that why you left?" Ryan ventured cautiously. "Because of him?" Sarah's expression darkened, a shadow crossing her features. "Let's just say it wasn't a safe environment for us. I wanted to protect her." Ryan felt a pang of empathy for her. He could see the weight of her past etched in the lines on her face. "If you ever need anything—" "Thank you," Sarah interrupted, her tone firm. "But we're okay. I just need to find a job, something stable." "Do you have any skills?" Ryan asked, his mind racing. "I used to work in a diner," she replied, "but it's been tough to find anything since—" She trailed off, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Maybe I can help," Ryan suggested, the words spilling out before he could think them through. "I know people. I could ask around." "That's really generous of you, Ryan, but I don't want any charity," Sarah said, her voice tinged with defiance. "I need to stand on my own 2 feet." "I get that," Ryan said, holding up his hands in surrender. "But sometimes, asking for help doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're smart enough to know when you need it." Lily, sensing the tension, looked up from her tea party. "Can we have cookies?" she piped up, her face brightening the somber atmosphere. "Cookies?" Ryan raised an eyebrow, the corners of his mouth twitching upward. "I suppose we can manage that." "Yay!" Lily cheered, jumping up from her makeshift table and wrapping her arms around Ryan's leg. Ryan chuckled, feeling a warmth spread through him that he hadn't felt in a long time. Okay, let's see what I can find." As he turned to head back to the main house, he glanced back at Sarah, who was watching him with a mix of surprise and gratitude. He felt a sense of connection growing between them, an understanding that transcended their different worlds. In the days that followed, Ryan made an effort to check in on them regularly. He would bring small treats or leftover food from his dinners, and they would share snippets of their lives. They talked about everything from childhood memories to their dreams for the future. Each conversation peeled back layers of their pasts, revealing vulnerabilities they had both tried to bury. One evening, as they sat together in the garage, the atmosphere felt lighter. "What did you want to be when you grew up?" Ryan asked, leaning against a stack of boxes. "I wanted to be a teacher," Sarah said, her eyes distant as she recalled her dreams. "To inspire kids, to help them learn and grow. But life had other plans." "You still can, you know," Ryan encouraged gently. "You could teach Lily, help her with her studies. That's a start." "I suppose," she said, a soft smile forming on her lips. "It's just hard to see a way forward right now." Ryan nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "One step at a time," he said. "You're doing better than you realize." As they talked, they were interrupted by Lily's laughter, the sound echoing through the garage. Ryan couldn't help but smile, feeling a warmth in his chest. In those moments, he realized that this unlikely trio was forging a bond that neither of them had anticipated. They were two people from vastly different worlds, but in that small garage filled with memories and dreams, they were beginning to find common ground. And perhaps, just perhaps, they could help each other heal from the scars of their pasts. Ryan Mitchell stood at the foot of his driveway, his hands buried deep in the pockets of his designer jeans, staring at the garage that had become a makeshift home for Sarah Jennings and her daughter Lily. The warm evening sun cast long shadows, but a chill crept into his heart, one that had little to do with the fading light. The laughter and music from the lavish party earlier that night felt like a lifetime ago, and the faces of his friends still lingered in his mind, their disapproving expressions etched in his memory. "You're really going to throw your reputation away for this?" his friend Mark had scoffed, shaking his head in disbelief as they stepped out onto the porch. "You're a millionaire, Ryan. You're supposed to be living the high life, not playing savior to the homeless." "I didn't ask to play savior," Ryan had retorted, his voice sharper than intended. "I just saw someone in need." "Need? You mean someone who made bad choices?" Mark countered, folding his arms across his chest. "You're jeopardizing your future for a single mother and her kid. You think they're going to thank you for this in the long run?" Ryan had bitten back a retort, knowing that the truth was far more complicated than any of his friends could understand. He had felt an unexpected connection to Sarah and Lily, a bond that transcended their circumstances. He had seen the fear in Sarah's eyes, the fierce love she had for her daughter, and it resonated with him. He too had known loneliness and the longing for connection, even amidst the crowd of sycophants that surrounded him. As he stood there, the shadows lengthening around him, Ryan's thoughts were interrupted by a soft giggle. He turned to see Lily playing with a small, worn-out teddy bear, her innocent laughter a stark contrast to the weight of the world that seemed to hang over them all. She was a bright spot in his life, a reminder that joy could exist even in the harshest of circumstances. "Mr. Ryan, look!" Lily called out, her eyes sparkling with excitement as she held up the teddy bear. "Mr. Teddy wants to meet you!" Ryan couldn't help but smile as he walked over to them. "Well, hello, Mr. Teddy," he said, crouching down to meet the child's gaze. "You're looking very fluffy today." Lily giggled again, her laughter like music to his ears. "He loves hugs," she declared, and before he could respond, she thrust the bear into his arms. "Here." "Okay then," Ryan said, wrapping his arms around the teddy bear and holding it close. "I guess Mr. Teddy and I are best friends now." Just then, Sarah emerged from the garage, her hair slightly disheveled as she wiped her hands on the faded apron she wore. She looked weary but determined, the lines of anxiety etched on her face slowly softening as she witnessed the interaction between Ryan and her daughter. "Is he being good to Mr. Teddy?" Sarah asked, her voice a mixture of concern and amusement. "Very good," Lily chimed, bouncing on her toes. "Mr. Ryan is the best friend Mr. Teddy could ever have." Ryan chuckled, feeling a warmth spread through him. "I'll do my best to take care of Mr. Teddy," he promised, handing the plush toy back to Lily. "But I think he needs a bit of a makeover. What do you say we give him a bath?" "Can we?" Lily's eyes widened with excitement, and before Ryan could respond, she was tugging at Sarah's hand, urging her to join in on the fun. "All right, let's do it," Sarah said, a smile breaking through her fatigue as they moved toward a small basin of water that Ryan had set up outside. As they worked together, Ryan found himself captivated by the bond that was forming between them. He watched as Sarah gently scrubbed the teddy bear, her touch tender and caring. "You're doing a great job," he remarked, his voice filled with admiration. "Thanks," Sarah replied, glancing up at him. "It's just, I want to make things better for Lily. She deserves that." "You're doing everything you can," Ryan assured her, feeling an unexpected surge of protectiveness. "You're a good mother, Sarah." She paused, looking at him with a mix of gratitude and vulnerability. "I'm just trying to survive, you know. Every day is a challenge, but I want more for her. I want her to have a normal life." Ryan nodded, understanding all too well the weight of those words. "You're stronger than you think. I can see it in the way you care for Lily." A moment of silence passed between them, filled with unspoken understanding. The world outside their little bubble seemed to fade away, leaving only the sound of water splashing and Lily's delighted laughter. It was a rare moment of peace, one that Ryan had longed for in his own chaotic life. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden hue across the yard, Ryan's phone buzzed in his pocket, pulling him back to reality. He glanced at the screen and saw a string of messages from Mark and the others, urging him to come back and join them for drinks. He felt a pang of guilt. He had abandoned his friends for this new life, and now they were starting to worry about him. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked, noticing the change in his demeanor. "Yeah," Ryan replied, forcing a smile. "Just a few messages from friends." "Friends?" Sarah's brow furrowed slightly. "Are they the kind of friends who judge you for helping us?" He hesitated, not wanting to tarnish the moment with his own troubles. "They're just concerned. They think I'm making a mistake. Maybe they don't understand," she said softly, her gaze steady. "It's not a mistake if you're helping someone who needs it." Her words struck a chord within him, and for the first time, Ryan felt a flicker of defiance against the expectations of his old life. "You're right," he said, his voice firming. "Maybe it's time I start making my own choices." Just then, Lily interrupted their serious conversation, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Mr. Ryan, you have to help me make a cake for my birthday," she exclaimed, her enthusiasm infectious. "Your birthday?" Ryan asked, surprised. "When is it?" "In 2 days," Lily replied, bouncing on her feet. "Can we have a party, please?" Ryan exchanged a glance with Sarah, who looked both surprised and amused. "A birthday party sounds like a wonderful idea," Sarah said, her smile widening. "But we'll need to keep it simple." "Simple is good," Ryan agreed, his mind already racing with ideas. "How about we decorate the garage, get some balloons, and I can bake the cake?" "Can you bake?" Sarah teased, raising an eyebrow. "I can follow a recipe," he replied with mock seriousness. "How hard can it be?" Lily clapped her hands, her excitement palpable. "Yay, we're going to have a party." As they continued to brainstorm ideas for Lily's birthday celebration, Ryan felt a sense of warmth and belonging that he hadn't experienced in years. In that moment, surrounded by the laughter of a little girl and the quiet strength of her mother, he realized that perhaps he had found something more valuable than all his wealth, a sense of purpose, a connection that transcended their circumstances. And as the stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, Ryan knew that he would do everything in his power to make this birthday special for Lily. It was a promise he made not just to her, but to himself, a commitment to embrace this unexpected journey and the bonds that were forming between them, no matter the judgment from the outside world. Ryan Mitchell sat at his desk, the glow of multiple screens illuminating the dimly lit room. Lines of code flickered across the monitors, but his mind was elsewhere. He glanced at the clock. It was well past midnight. The world outside his tech empire continued to spin, but inside, there was an unsettling stillness. He thought of Sarah and Lily, their laughter and innocence filling the garage, a stark contrast to the sterile environment of his office. The garage, once a repository for discarded tech and old furniture, had transformed into a sanctuary of sorts. Yet the more Ryan tried to immerse himself in work, the more he felt the weight of his decision pressing down on him. He was grateful for the connection they had forged, but the strain of his demanding schedule was starting to show. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Hey!" he called out, hoping to break the silence that loomed over him. "Sarah, you and Lily want to watch a movie tonight?" From the makeshift living area, he heard the soft patter of little feet. Lily came bounding in, her hair bouncing with each step, a brilliant smile lighting up her face. "Can we? Can we watch the one with the talking animals?" "Sure thing, kiddo," he replied, his heart warming at her enthusiasm. Sarah emerged from the shadows, a tired expression etched on her face. "Ryan, I appreciate the offer, but I think we should keep things low-key tonight. Lily needs to sleep soon." Ryan frowned slightly, feeling the tension that had begun to brew. "I understand, but I thought it might be nice for us to unwind together. It's been a long week, hasn't it?" Sarah crossed her arms, her gaze shifting to the floor. "It has, but I have a routine now, and I don't want to disrupt it. We have to be up early for the job I found." "Right, the job," Ryan nodded, feeling a pang of disappointment. He admired her determination but couldn't help but feel sidelined. "I just thought, I don't know, it could be fun." Lily, sensing the tension, jumped in. "Can we watch it tomorrow then, please, Sarah?" Sarah's expression softened as she looked down at her daughter. I suppose we can try. But just one movie, okay? You need to get to bed after. Yay! Lily squealed, clapping her hands. Ryan couldn't help but smile at her joy, but the conversation left him feeling unsettled. As the evening wore on, he prepared the garage for their movie night, pulling out an old projector he had stored away. The flickering light soon filled the space, casting shadows on the walls as they settled down on mismatched blankets and pillows. As the movie played, Ryan glanced over at Sarah, who was half watching, half lost in thought. He noticed the slight furrow of her brow and the way her fingers tapped nervously against her knee. Hey, he said softly, trying to break through her distraction. What's on your mind? Sarah hesitated, her gaze still fixed on the screen. I'm just thinking about tomorrow. The job is important, and I really need to make a good impression. You will, Ryan said, his voice steady. You've worked so hard. I'm sure they'll see how dedicated you are. I hope so, she replied, finally turning her head to meet his gaze. I just can't afford any mistakes, not now. Ryan nodded, understanding the pressure she felt. I get it. But remember, you're not alone in this. If you need anything. I know, Ryan, she interrupted, her tone becoming firmer. But I can't keep relying on you. I want to stand on my own 2 feet for once. The tension in the air thickened, and Ryan felt a mixture of frustration and admiration for her resolve. I'm not trying to take that away from you. I just want to help. Sometimes it feels like you want to fix everything, Sarah said, her voice dropping to a whisper. I don't need fixing. I need to be able to do this myself. Ryan swallowed hard, realizing the truth in her words. He had always been the problem solver, the one who swooped in to make things better, but he also needed to respect her autonomy. Okay, I hear you. I'll step back a bit. Thank you, she replied, her expression softening. It's hard for me to trust sometimes. Ryan felt a flicker of vulnerability in her admission. I get that. Trust doesn't come easy. I've had my own struggles with it. Really? Sarah asked, her interest piqued. You seem so confident. Confidence can be a mask, he said, a hint of bitterness creeping into his tone. I built this life, but it's not as glamorous as it looks. I've spent a lot of nights feeling incredibly alone. He could see Sarah processing his words, her brow furrowing as she tried to reconcile the image of the successful millionaire with the loneliness he described. I didn't realize, she said softly. I guess we all have our battles. Yeah, Ryan sighed, leaning back against the wall. I thought that money would fix everything, but it just made me more isolated. The movie continued to play in the background, but their conversation had taken a more profound turn. Sarah looked down at her hands, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. I understand that feeling. I've been alone for so long, and I fought every day just to keep my daughter safe. Ryan's heart ached at her words. You're doing an amazing job, Sarah. You've shown so much strength. Strength doesn't always feel like strength, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Sometimes it feels like I'm just barely holding on. Just then, the doorbell rang, slicing through their intimate moment. Ryan exchanged a glance with Sarah, confusion etched on both their faces. Who could that be? I don't know, Sarah replied nervously. It's late. Ryan stood up, a protective instinct kicking in. Stay here. I'll check it out. He opened the door slowly, revealing a stern-looking woman holding a clipboard. Mr. Mitchell? She asked, her tone professional but firm. Yes, Ryan replied, his heart racing. I'm with social services. I need to speak with you regarding the Jennings family. Ryan's stomach dropped. He turned to look at Sarah, who had risen to her feet, her face pale. What do you mean? He asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The woman glanced at Sarah before returning her gaze to Ryan. We've received reports that raise concerns about the living conditions for the Jennings child. What? Ryan exclaimed, disbelief flooding his system. Lily is safe here. We're taking good care of them. Sir, we need to assess the situation, the woman replied, her tone unyielding. There are protocols we must follow. Sarah stepped forward, her voice trembling. Please, I can explain everything. Lily is happy here. We're fine. Ryan felt a surge of protectiveness wash over him. This isn't happening. You can't just barge in here without cause. The woman remained unfazed. We have a responsibility to ensure the safety and well-being of the child. Now, if you could allow me to conduct a brief assessment. No, Sarah interrupted, her eyes wide with fear. I can't lose her. Please, don't take her away. Ryan's heart raced as he stepped closer to Sarah, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. I won't let that happen, he vowed, his voice low. I'll do whatever it takes to help you both. The woman's expression softened slightly, but her resolve remained. I'm just doing my job, but I need your cooperation. Let's talk inside, Ryan said, his mind racing as he tried to formulate a plan to protect Sarah and Lily. The stakes had just risen dramatically, and he knew he had to act fast. Really? Sarah asked, her interest piqued. You? You seem so confident. Confidence can be a mask, he said, a hint of bitterness creeping into his tone. I built this life, but it's not as glamorous as it looks. I've spent a lot of nights feeling incredibly alone. He could see Sarah processing his words, her brow furrowing as she tried to reconcile the image of the successful millionaire with the loneliness he described. I didn't realize, she said softly. I guess we all have our battles. Yeah, Ryan sighed, leaning back against the wall. I thought that money would fix everything, but it just made me more isolated. The movie continued to play in the background, but their conversation had taken a more profound turn. Sarah looked down at her hands, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. I understand that feeling. I've been alone for so long, and I've fought every day just to keep my daughter safe. Ryan's heart ached at her words. You're doing an amazing job, Sarah. You've shown so much strength. Strength doesn't always feel like strength, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Sometimes it feels like I'm just barely holding on. Just then the doorbell rang, slicing through their intimate moment. Ryan exchanged a glance with Sarah, confusion etched on both their faces. Who could that be? I don't know, Sarah replied nervously. It's late. Ryan stood up, a protective instinct kicking in. Stay here. I'll check it out. He opened the door slowly, revealing a stern-looking woman holding a clipboard. Mr. Mitchell? She asked, her tone professional but firm. Yes, Ryan replied, his heart racing. I'm with social services. I need to speak with you regarding the Jennings family. Ryan's stomach dropped. He turned to look at Sarah, who had risen to her feet, her face pale. What do you mean? He asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The woman glanced at Sarah before returning her gaze to Ryan. We've received reports that raise concerns about the living conditions for the Jennings child. What? Ryan exclaimed, disbelief flooding his system. Lily is safe here. We're taking good care of them. Sir, we need to assess the situation, the woman replied, her tone unyielding. There are protocols we must follow. Sarah stepped forward, her voice trembling. Please, I can explain everything. Lily is happy here. We're fine. Ryan felt a surge of protectiveness wash over him. This isn't happening. You can't just barge in here without cause. The woman remained unfazed. We have a responsibility to ensure the safety and well-being of the child. Now, if you could allow me to conduct a brief assessment. No, Sarah interrupted, her eyes wide with fear. I can't lose her. Please, don't take her away. Ryan's heart raced as he stepped closer to Sarah, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. I won't let that happen, he vowed, his voice low. I'll do whatever it takes to help you both. The woman's expression softened slightly, but her resolve remained. I'm just doing my job, but I need your cooperation. Let's talk inside, Ryan said, his mind racing as he tried to formulate a plan to protect Sarah and Lily. The stakes had just risen dramatically, and he knew he had to act fast. Sometimes I wonder if I'm enough for her, she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. What if I mess up? What if I can't keep us safe? Look, you've done more than most people would in your situation, Ryan said, his voice steady. You've taken risks. You've fought for her. That's what matters. Thanks, Ryan. It means a lot to hear you say that. She managed a faint smile, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Just then, Lily burst into the garage, her energy infectious as she clutched a small drawing she had made. Look, Mommy, I drew us, and Mr. Ryan too. The little girl's face lit up with pride, her innocence a stark contrast to the weight of the adult conversations that had filled the air moments before. That's amazing, sweetie. Sarah knelt down, embracing her daughter. You've captured our family perfectly. Ryan leaned down, peering at the colorful scribbles that represented them. Wow, I think you have a future as an artist, Lily. We should hang this up on the wall. Really? Lily's eyes widened with excitement. Can we? Can we? Can we? Absolutely, Ryan replied, his heart swelling at the joy radiating from the little girl. As he stepped back, he caught Sarah watching him, her expression softening. In that moment, a sense of normalcy settled around them, a fragile truce in the midst of their chaotic lives. Yet the unspoken tension lingered, binding them with threads of unacknowledged feelings. As the days passed, Ryan found himself increasingly aware of Sarah's presence. Her laughter, her resilience, the way she cared for Lily with an unwavering dedication. However, amidst the growing connection, the outside world began to press in. Whispers echoed through the neighborhood. Judgmental eyes scrutinized Ryan's choice to harbor a homeless mother and her child. "What will people think?" his friends had asked, concern etched on their faces. "You're jeopardizing your reputation, Ryan. You're a millionaire, not a charity." One evening, as they gathered around a small table in the garage, Ryan broached the subject. "Sarah, I've been hearing some things from my friends. They're worried about how this looks for me." "I get it," she said, her voice steady but tinged with sadness. "I know I'm not the image of success you're used to. I don't want to be a burden." "It's not about that," Ryan replied, frustration creeping into his voice. "You're not a burden, you're—" He paused, searching for the right words. "You're a person, and what we have here, it's real. But I won't lie, I'm feeling the pressure from the outside. People will talk." Sarah looked away, her expression inscrutable. "I don't want to be the reason your life gets complicated. You've worked too hard for everything you have. Maybe it's time for me to find another place." "Don't say that," Ryan exclaimed, desperation creeping into his tone. "You and Lily belong here. This is your home now, at least for as long as you need it." "But at what cost?" she countered, her voice rising. "I don't want to drag you down with me, Ryan. You deserve better." He stepped closer, his heart racing. "What if I don't want better? What if I want this?" Silence enveloped them, thick and palpable. The air crackled with unspoken words, emotions swirling like a tempest. Just as their eyes locked, the phone rang, breaking the moment. Sarah's face paled as she glanced at the screen. It's an old friend," she stammered, her voice suddenly distant. "Do you want to answer it?" Ryan asked, sensing the shift in her demeanor. I should probably take it," she said, her voice trembling. As she stepped outside to answer the call, Ryan felt an unsettling knot in his stomach. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change, that the fragile balance they had fought so hard to maintain was on the brink of unraveling. Minutes stretched into eternity as he waited, anxiety gnawing at him. When Sarah returned, her face was pale, and her hands trembled slightly. "Sarah, what happened?" Ryan asked, his heart racing. It was about my past," she whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. "I need to talk to you." The weight of her words hung heavy between them, and for the first time, Ryan felt the ground beneath his feet shift. He braced himself for the storm that was about to break, knowing that whatever secrets her past held could turn their world upside down. The morning sun filtered through the dusty windows of Ryan's garage, casting a warm glow on the makeshift living space where Sarah and Lily had settled. The clutter of Ryan's old tech gadgets and furniture served as a backdrop to their new reality. Sarah, still reeling from the shocking news delivered by her old friend, paced back and forth, her heart racing with anxiety. The weight of the past pressed heavily on her shoulders, and the fear for Lily's safety gnawed at her insides. "Mommy, why are you walking like that?" Lily's innocent voice cut through Sarah's spiraling thoughts. The little girl sat cross-legged on a pile of blankets, her bright eyes filled with curiosity. She was drawing with crayons on a piece of paper, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing outside. "Just thinking, sweetheart," Sarah replied, forcing a smile as she knelt beside her daughter. "What are you drawing?" "It's us. See?" Lily held up her artwork, a colorful depiction of two stick figures under a sun, with a heart hovering above them. Sarah's heart melted at the sight, but the smile faded as memories of Lily's biological father flashed in her mind, the man who had brought chaos into their lives. "Can we go outside today?" Lily asked, her voice hopeful. "I want to play." Sarah hesitated, glancing at the door that led to the outside world. The fear of being discovered loomed over her, but she didn't want to cage Lily in. "Maybe later, okay? Let's finish your drawing first." Lily's face scrunched up in disappointment, but she nodded, returning her focus to the paper. Sarah took a deep breath, forcing herself to remain calm for Lily's sake. Just then, Ryan emerged from the small kitchenette area, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. His tousled hair and wrinkled t-shirt gave him a boyish charm that contrasted sharply with the gravity of the situation. "Good morning, ladies," he said, stretching his arms. "What's the plan for today?" "Just some art," Sarah replied, glancing at Lily. "Nothing too grand." Ryan's expression shifted to concern as he noticed the tension in Sarah's shoulders. "Everything okay?" Before she could respond, the phone rang, startling both Ryan and Sarah. They exchanged glances, and Sarah's heart raced as she recognized the ringtone, the one that belonged to her old friend Jenna. With a shaky hand, she answered the call. "Sarah?" Jenna's voice was shaky, and Sarah could sense the urgency behind it. "You need to listen to me. I don't have much time." "Jenna, what's going on?" Sarah asked, her voice low and tense. "It's about Lily's father. He's been asking around, looking for you. He knows you're in town." Sarah's heart dropped. "What do you mean he's looking for us? I thought He's dangerous, Sarah. He's been in and out of prison, and he's not the kind of man you want to cross. You need to get out of there. Now." "Get out?" Sarah repeated, panic rising in her chest. "Where would I go? I can't just leave." "Look, I'm sorry to bring this to you, but you need to be smart about this. You can't stay where you are. He could show up any day now. Just promise me you'll be careful." Before Sarah could respond, Jenna hung up, leaving her standing there, the weight of the revelation crashing down on her. She turned to Ryan, who had been listening intently, concern etched on his face. "What's wrong?" he pressed, stepping closer. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Lily's father. He's looking for us," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. "Jenna says he's dangerous." Ryan's expression hardened. "What do you mean dangerous? What does he want?" "He wants to find us, Ryan. He could hurt us." The fear in Sarah's eyes was palpable, and Ryan felt a surge of protectiveness wash over him. "We can't let that happen," he said firmly, his mind racing with possibilities. "We need a plan." "But what can we do?" Sarah's voice cracked, her vulnerability exposed. "I can't just run away. Lily deserves to feel safe." "We'll figure it out together," Ryan assured her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "First, we need to secure the garage. We can't let anyone know you're here." Sarah nodded, though doubt lingered in her mind. "What if he finds us anyway? What if he comes here?" "Then we'll be ready," Ryan replied, determination in his eyes. "I'll make sure nothing happens to you or Lily." As Ryan began to assess the garage, Sarah watched him with a mix of gratitude and trepidation. She had never expected to find someone like him, someone willing to protect them without hesitation. Yet a nagging thought tugged at her. What if this connection, fragile and new, was about to be tested in ways they couldn't foresee? "Ryan," she started, her voice hesitant, "I appreciate everything you've done for us, but what if this puts you in danger too?" Ryan turned to her, a steely resolve in his gaze. "You're my priority now. I won't let anything happen to you or Lily. We'll figure this out together." As the day wore on, they worked side by side, reinforcing the garage door, securing windows, and creating makeshift barriers that would buy them time in case of an emergency. The atmosphere was electric with tension, but an unspoken bond grew between them as they shared the labor. Later that evening, they sat together on the floor, exhausted but determined. Lily was asleep in a corner, her small frame curled up under a blanket. Sarah looked at Ryan, her heart heavy with the weight of their shared burden. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything." Ryan met her gaze, his expression softening. "We're in this together, Sarah. I won't let you down." But just as they began to breathe a little easier, Ryan's phone buzzed again, cutting through the fragile calm. He glanced at the screen and felt his stomach drop. It was a message from one of his friends, asking if he was okay after hearing rumors about a dangerous man in the area. "Ryan?" Sarah asked, sensing his shift in demeanor. "Just some news," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'll handle it." But the doubt lingered in Sarah's mind. What if this was all too much? What if their paths were about to collide in ways they couldn't control? As she watched Ryan respond to the message, she couldn't shake the feeling that their lives were about to change forever. "Ryan, what if there's more to this?" she ventured, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if he finds us before we're ready?" He turned to her, his expression serious. "Then we'll face it, together." But just as he spoke, a chilling realization washed over him. He remembered the details of Sarah's story, the man who had hurt her, the life she had fled. Suddenly the pieces started to fit together in a way that sent a shiver down his spine. Sarah, wait, he said slowly. What if I know him? Her eyes widened in disbelief. What do you mean? I need you to tell me everything about him now. As the truth began to unravel between them, the air thick with tension and uncertainty, Ryan felt a sense of dread wash over him. Little did they know, the revelations ahead would bind their fates together in ways they could never have anticipated, setting them on a collision course that would challenge everything they had come to know about love, trust, and survival.